of Americans said they have investments in Wall Street, in the markets, in mutual funds. So America is invested in this economy. They believe in this economy, and we saw them today split right down the middle. Dan?
Indeed, we did, Anthony Mason. Just to pick up this business about the Electoral College, there's going to be a recount in Florida. This is a very unusual situation in a presidential election under the Electoral College. Stop for a moment. If we didn't have the Electoral College, and I'm not arguing that we should or should not have it, but it's worth considering, imagine a national recount being demanded, not just Florida, a whole nationwide recount, which might very well be the case if an election as close as this one, and that would take months to do. That'll be one of the arguments for keeping the Electoral College. The main reason, the main argument for keeping the Electoral College, whether you agree with it or not to understand it, is to make sure that sparsely populated areas of the country still have some weight in deciding the outcome of the election. Ed Bradley, you had a point you wanted to make. Now
yeah, there's a history of this in Florida with these close elections and recounts. In 1988, you had two congressmen running for the Senate, Connie Mack, the Republican, and Buddy McKay, the Democrat. 3.9 million votes were cast. 3,000 separated the two. 3,000 votes out of 3.9 million. McKay did not concede until 8 days after the votes in 5 large counties had been counted again.
But I can hear someone saying, well, I'm unimpressed by that because we had almost 6 million votes cast in Florida in this presidential election, and about 1/3 of 1% is George Bush's lead. So a much larger election and a much smaller margin, although that is instructive. We've been making the point overwhelmingly in elections, whether you're talking about for county commissioner or senator, when you ask for a recount, usually the person who was leading at the time the recount was asked for, usually that person comes out on top. Not to definitely say that that would be the case in Florida, but it might very well be that case. Now, Dateline Florida, the Florida Attorney General says the recount will be open to both camps. Let's listen to what he has to say.
I don't know at this point in time as we're speaking who's the winner. But no matter who the winner is, there has to be a recount. And the 67 supervisors of elections should have that recount as quickly as possible, with the media watching the recount, and also with somebody from each one of the campaigns as allowed by law to be there to watch it.
The reason the Florida Attorney General says a recount is mandated at Florida law says anytime it's closer than 1/2 of 1% margin must be a recount. We've said that Bush's lead is about 1/3 of 1% at the moment. 249 to 246 with 270 needed to win in the Electoral College. Florida will decide it. In the overall national vote, Gore leads now by several 100,000 votes over George Bush. Gore may win the national popular vote, and he stands a very good chance of losing the Electoral College vote. We'll be right back. Stay here with us.
For sinus sufferers, it can start with a twinge or perhaps a slight pressure. For everyone, there's a signal. Your sinuses are gonna be trouble. Don't let it happen. Take Sudafed at the first sign. Untreated sinus pressure can escalate to pain. But now, taking Sudafed at the first sign releases pressure, so symptoms don't get worse.
The first sign of pressure, that's my signal.
Stop sinus pain before it starts. Take non-drowsy Sudafed at the first sign.
All it takes is one random spark from a fire, landing in the wrong place at the wrong time, and your whole family's future could go up in flames. Or not. Learn more about or not at thenewsteel.com.
Neutrogena hand cream, developed in Norway for Arctic fishermen to protect their hands. 5 years of clinical tests prove it works better at rapidly healing dry skin and at retaining moisture longer. That's why it's trusted by dermatologists. Neutrogena hand cream, it works better.
Looking to save more and spend less this holiday season? With the Chrysler Holiday Sale, you can do just that. Because now you can save over $2,300 when you buy a new 2001 Town & Country with 4.9% financing. Or choose a $299 lease on the award-winning 2001 Chrysler Voyager. So take advantage of the Chrysler Holiday Sale today for savings that let you spend more on a real holiday priority, yourself.
I will never ask, what do you plan to do with your life?
I will never talk about the things you haven't accomplished.
I'll never bring up the time you came home smelling like that other dog.
I will never worry about where we're going.
As long as you roll down that window so I can pretend I'm flying.
No relationship is like the one with your dog. No dog food is like Purina One brand. And it's made with real meat. No corners cut, complete in every way. For the health and happiness of your dog. Purina One, how great relationships are fed.
He's one of the most decorated Green Berets in history. Now this colonel stands accused of murdering his wife.
What did you kill her with, Colonel? I did not kill her.
But could this American hero be the target of a plot to destroy him?
I loved her. I still love her.
Who killed the colonel's wife? 48 Hours, Thursday.
Back at CBS News election headquarters in New York. So there's no misunderstanding. Bush's lead in Florida, he's had a lead since roughly about midnight Eastern time. But Bush's lead is now down to 1/30th of 1%. That's what a minuscule amount Bush leads in Florida, but put it in the headline, he still leads in Florida, and if he continues to lead and survives the recount, and the odds are considered at least reasonably good that he can do that, Bush can still become president of the United States. In fact, it's advantage Bush because he does still lead in Florida. 1/30th of 1% lead is a lead in the Electoral College vote. 249 for Gore, 246 for Bush, 270 needed to win. Bush clinging to a 1/30th of 1% lead out of 6 million votes cast in Florida. If that lead stands up under a recount bill, then Bush will be the next president of the United States, despite the fact that in the overall popular national election vote, Gore has a several 100,000 vote lead over George Bush. Yes, both are at roughly 48%, but if you do the arithmetic here, you've got, well, Bob, help me out. This lead is down some now. It's certainly a substantial lead for Gore. Gore could, not necessarily will, but could win the national popular vote. However, Bush is still in the hunt for that, and he could come back and take that as well. You might want to know that since 1948, 7 individual state electors have voted against the voters' wishes in their states, saying that it was a matter of principle for them. Bob?
You remember what else happened in 1948, Dan? That was the year that Lyndon Johnson won a seat in the United States Senate. Several million votes cast in the state of Texas, and he won by 87 votes. I always remember it. Lyndon Johnson came to campaign in Fort Worth. I was a little boy then, came in a helicopter, and it scared us all to death.
Well, he did. He became known as Landslide Lyndon, not because he threw his hat down from a helicopter at you and others down in that shopping mall in Fort Worth, but because he won by 47 votes. He won by 47 votes.
87.
87 votes. 87 votes in his Senate race. In my recollection is there were in excess of 2 million votes cast.
Well, and one of the interesting things about that, it turned out that several of the people down in South Texas, about 100 or so, voted in alphabetical order, according to the voting rolls, if you'll remember.
Well, we don't know that we're facing this situation at the moment. That is a famous Duval County down in Texas where things have long since been cleaned up. But in Florida, as of this hour, so far as anybody can make out, all the votes have been clean. Yes, asterisk bottom of the page, there are complaints that in one section of Florida, said to be a section strongly for Gore, there are complaints that somebody, perhaps not purposely, had jiggered the voting apparatus and equipment around in such a way that people who thought they were voting for Gore wound up having the votes counted for Buchanan. But that's an asterisk at the bottom of the page. What the Gore people have asked, and what Florida law, as it turns out, mandates, is that there be a recount to make sure all the votes have been counted and that all the votes that have been counted in individual precincts have been reported to what we call the central vote counting place. It's a complicated situation. It is unprecedented. We're dealing in political waters in which no Americans have ever been swimming before. The White House may well go to a Republican who may or may not have won the overall national vote. The Senate almost certainly will be in control of the Republicans. The House, their margin will be down, but it looks like a net pickup of only 2 for the Democrats. So we're facing the possibility here, and some would say a probability. You have a Republican-controlled White House, a Republican-controlled Senate, and a Republican-controlled House of Representatives. This hasn't happened for the Republicans since 1952, when Dwight Eisenhower beat Adlai Stevenson, who was attempting to succeed Harry Truman. Now, the Democrats have been in the position of having the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, not very often, but in fairly recent years, in the first Clinton term it happened. He had that. Jimmy Carter had it for a while in 1976. Now, the electors are due to meet December 18th, that's less than 6 weeks from now, to make the election official. Hopefully, which Florida electors will attend and will be voting for whom will be settled long before that. This is the way it shapes up. 270 electoral votes needed to win. 249 for Gore, we think, are solid. 246 for Bush, solid. Take you to our map. And on the map, you have a situation in which 3 states have their polls closed, long since closed, but we do not yet know who is the winner. Florida with 25 electoral votes, that's where the presidency now hinges. Wisconsin with 11 undecided. Oregon with 7 undecided. All the states in red, a majority of the states, George Bush has taken. Those with the blinking lights, Nevada, Arizona, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia, all voted for President Clinton in 1996, but they went for Bush tonight. So with all that red there, Bush has clearly carried more states than Gore, but Gore carried the more populous states, including New York, Michigan, Illinois, and California, to say nothing of Washington State, and that's the reason it now stands 249 for Gore, 246 for Bush in the Electoral College race. Now, if you want to have a look at, we've said this Florida race shows a lead for Bush somewhere on the order of 750 to possibly as many as 1,700 votes, which would be about 1/30th of 1% of the 6 million votes cast. And Wisconsin, let's give you a look at this Wisconsin presidential race, if we can get the numbers up. This state's been out there for a long while with 11 electoral votes. It's this close, really, really close, about what? Maybe a not quite a 7,000 vote lead for Al Gore. Nader with 4%. Again, this is another state where Nader may make the decisive difference. And if you want to go out in Oregon, take a look at that vote, a presidential race in Oregon. 7 electoral votes at stake out in the Beaver State. Bush leads Gore 49% to 46%. Again, with Ralph Nader running at about 4%, this is with 75% of the Oregon precincts reporting. But we must continue to underscore and italicize that the race boils down to Florida now. The candidate who wins Florida's 25 electoral votes will be the next president of the United States, and George Bush has been clinging to a lead that once was down as low as about 270 some odd votes. He's now backed up to between 750 and 1,700 votes. There will be a recount in Florida. We're going to take a break, but we'll be right back. Stay here with us.